Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is a special Tim A podcast, my second one of the week, but I couldn't pass up this opportunity to get a blast from the past who could give us, I don't know, some insight on what we might see on Friday night from the standpoint of this man has played against Clemson before. He's played against Clemson in a bowl game, and he's played in the Sugar Bowl before. Ladies and gentlemen, Doug Donley, White Lightning, welcome to the Tim A podcast.
Thank you, Tim. Good to be here.
Hey, man, it seems like only yesterday, man, when we were watching you run around, catch passes in Ohio Stadium, et cetera. Time flies, doesn't it, my brother?
Yeah, someone sent me a text the other day, and it was, 42 years ago or something? I'm like, man, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, let's jump right into it, man. You know, my premise here, I wanted to call you, I'm trying to get at the root of why Ohio State, the one team it's never beaten that has played multiple times is a team named Clemson. You were on the field that night in 1978, you know, Art Schlichter, et cetera. That was a hell of a game. And let's just jump right into it from the standpoint of strange things happened at the end of that game, as you well remember. And I'm blaming everything that's happened in these Clemson games since then on this. But, Charlie Bauman intercepts Art Schlichter on that play. What people maybe don't remember is you were wide open down the right sideline, probably would have scored the go-ahead, maybe probably the winning touchdown on that play if Art had seen you or had time to find you. But I don't know, man. Do we trace this all back, this era of futility against Clemson? Do we trace it all back to that team and that game that night? What do you think, man?
I don't know, man. It goes to Charlie. That game was crazy. Like I said, on that play, I was going down the sideline. I was wide open, and when you watch the video, Art didn't even look. He was, trying to hit somebody, just a little running back going across a little drag route, and then Charlie intercepts it. And, the rest of the story, he gets tackled on our sideline, and then Woody takes a little, love tap at him. So, that was a crazy game, and that I'll never forget that game. And then since then, we've just had bad luck against Clemson. It's been crazy game after crazy game.
Yeah. Seriously, I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. But because, Ohio State fans, even the bad stuff sometimes they like to talk about. You know what I mean by bad? I mean, losing to Clemson. But that was Woody Hayes' last game as Ohio State coach because he was summarily, depending on who you want to believe, he was summarily fired or resigned, retired, whatever, within the next 12 hours. But what do you remember about the last after that play? What do you remember about the last several minutes on the sideline and stuff? Obviously, Woody got another unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Tom Kuzna came over and I think politely told him to be quiet, but because y'all had a chance to get the ball back, if things had stayed a little more civil on the sideline. But what do you remember about that? Just those last few minutes.
I came off the sideline. Like I said, I was on the field, and I saw all this commotion on the sideline, and so I'm just coming up the off the field, up the sideline to our locker or to our sideline, and I see all this commotion. I said, "What happened?" And they said, "Well, Woody hit a guy," and I'm like, "Okay, so what? What's the big deal, right?" He's punching somebody every day, and I don't even remember the next series of events. The next thing I remember about that whole deal is Woody talking to us in the locker room after the game as to, what happened and why he did it, which was a crazy story in itself.
So, tell that story. Why did he do it?
So Woody, he got us up in a huddle, we all circled around him. He's in the middle. And when Woody talked, he kind of whispered and he repeated himself a little bit. And so he said, everybody up here. So we all got in a huddle, and he said, "You probably think I'm sorry I hit that guy, don't you? And we're kind of thinking, well, maybe national TV hit the guy on the other team. And he goes, "Do you know what? The whiny bastard, he had it coming. And he said, do you know why? And we're like, just waiting for this, right? And he says, because his great-great-grandfather killed my great-great-grandfather in the Civil War. So, Woody,
wow.
He went into every game like it was a war. And so that's what he told us after the game. And then, when we got on the plane we landed, and then Woody got up and got the intercom from what the stewardess used, and he said, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to announce I'm no longer the head coach of Ohio State." And the players sat there in shock. We just sat there, and I think it was 30 minutes before someone got up and started walking off the plane. So
Wow. Really?
crazy.
Seriously? I didn't realize
Yeah.
that part. Hey,
Yeah.
what Doug, when he said his great-great-grandfather killed my great-great-grandfather, what did you think at that very moment? Like, what were you thinking?
You,
What's he
you,
talking about? I mean, what was
what,
the reaction to that,
we've heard Woody talk to us so many times and told us so many different stories about General Patton and just such a
Yeah.
war buff. And so, I just thought, he believed in his mind going into the game that, this was another war and, just like the Civil War. And so,
Wow.
we love hearing his stories, and, we chuckled at some of them, but it really wasn't that strange to me hearing him, say that. So, because
Yeah.
I believe that in his mind, he believed that.
Wow. Wow. I hadn't heard that explanation before until just now, because he never did apologize
Mm-mm.
he never did apologize for it. I mean,
No.
it's interesting to me. Let me ask you though, was there a sense, you were recruited by him? You were a freshman, in '77? If I'm not, you went to the Sugar Bowl, right, against Alabama and stuff. The first time Ohio State ever went to the Sugar Bowl, and which now I think is its third most visited bowl game after the Rose Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl. But I digress on that part. Did you sense that Woody, or just that a change might be coming down the road? I mean, those first 2 years, what was just your sense of what was going on in the program?
Well, when Woody, was recruiting Art, and they really wanted Art. And
Yeah.
that first year, I think it was hard on him because it was trying to change. He was trying to change his whole philosophy, and the first game, Penn State, Art threw 5 interceptions or something, and so that was tough on Woody. He'd moved Rod Gerald out. We'd got away from the Rod Gerald type option, and passing 7-8 times a game, and so. I think that was the beginning of the end right there. Was just Woody just feeling that pressure of just really not being himself, as far as, trying to let the reins go a little bit and let Coach Chomp, open it up a little bit.
Yeah. That's Rex Kern and I have had that conversation before, and he says that about those last couple of years too, that he wanted, some guys go grudgingly into the future, you know what I mean? But he wanted to get that basically giddy up offense a little bit. He said y'all were going to throw the ball 25 or 30 times, I think was his quote, in that Gator Bowl, which was, before the game, he said that. And then pretty much y'all did follow that game plan. I mean, I think you caught 2 passes on the first drive or something, didn't you?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was, it was fun when he actually started, throwing the ball. Now our passing scheme was not real complicated, but at least we were throwing the ball. If you look at what some of the other receivers, before me, what their yearly total was, 15, 16 catches for a season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
Hey, I want to get you this, the Sugar Bowl trip. What do you remember about the Sugar Bowl trip the year before? You were on that trip, I'm sure. Were you in Pat O'Brien's when Woody showed up?
Yeah. Yeah. We were sitting around the tables, and they had little round 4 tops, and, guys have got hurricanes and those big glasses, and, drinking, just having a good time. They just looked like fruit punch, right? And so somehow Woody found out there was alcohol in them, and he was running from table to table and picking them up and pouring them in the little tree wells. They had trees in Pat O'Brien's, and he's trying, and guys are sucking the drinks down as fast as they can. So, but that's the naivety of Woody, right? It was just so great. I mean, I remember we were in a movie. We used to go to a movie every night, Friday night before a game, and we went and watched a movie called Slapshot. And there's a scene in the movie where all the guys on the bus, pull down their doors and shoot a moon out the window. And when Woody saw that, he jumped up, made us all leave the movie theater and went to the general manager and just berated him for showing that kind of stuff on there. So it's pretty funny.
Wow. I mean, I've heard about him in movies before, but remember Easy Rider? Remember when it came out? You weren't around then, but somebody decided they were going to. He didn't like that one either. Hey, real quick story. Two quick stories. I was in Pat O'Brien's, just like you guys were, and I had never been there before, and I got a hurricane, drank it pretty quickly, got another one. I'm sitting in that piano bar. Remember, he had a piano bar.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting with a bunch of my buddies. And I drank the second one fairly quickly. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to head back to the hotel. And I stood up and I hovered for like 2 seconds and sat back down. And I didn't move again for like 2 hours. Boy, didn't the hurricanes, man. It didn't go over really good.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Hey, but, real quick, though, it's what I want to get to you. I mean, obviously I'm kind of joking about the curse, but there has been something weird about these Clemson games. The last 3 of them, especially, the game they had control of down in the Orange Bowl back in 2013 season, and Corey Philly Brown muffs a punt, and at the same time Braxton Miller's had his shoulder hurt, and next thing you know, Clemson comes back and wins that game, and they had some great players on that team, and then of course the 31-0 game in the college football playoff semifinal back in 2016 season. But then last year you watched that game. Matter of fact, you were there, right?
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, my buddy Jeff Snook, and I don't know if you've ever met Jeff Snook, but we thought we saw you at the Camelback. Were you staying at the Camelback?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
But we didn't want to. We saw you from afar, and then we were going to go come up and say hi to you, but you'd already moved on and stuff. But I knew you were there and stuff. But you saw how bizarre that game was. I mean, from the last play where Olave broke off his route, and Justin threw what was going to be a touchdown pass, in my opinion, because Olave was 1-on-1 with maybe their 4th or 5th best defender. But the game, where Clemson had a pass catch where Jeffrey Okudah ripped the ball out, and Ohio State scooped and scored, and they went to video replay review, which I think was done in Birmingham, Alabama, and wiped out. What are you sitting there? Are you sitting there scratching your head as a fan thinking, what the hell's going on? What were you thinking?
Yeah, you just wonder how they make that call and who's making that call, and are they looking at the same thing we're looking at? It just seems so obvious. And you see calls like that. I saw one today on a game, and I'm just like, how do you make that call? And it just goes to what you're saying is just the weirdness of this, this rivalry. I guess it's now become a pretty good rivalry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and Dabo stirring the pot. Voting Ohio State 11th. I'm going. If you're voting them 11th, why don't you just vote them 20th, or 30th? I mean, if you don't think they're qualified to be in the top 10, it's almost like he made them the number 1 of the second 10, But, you as a former player and stuff, would that stir you a little bit? What would it do for you headed into this game?
Let me tell you, Tim, if that doesn't get those guys, I mean, look, you're already playing at a high intensity level because it's a big game. But when someone says that and disrespects you, you play at another level where you've got that adrenaline where you're picking a car off somebody. So I really do expect that Ohio State goes and plays at a higher level intensity wise because of that. There's no doubt. So that, people say, it's one thing to have bulletin board material about one guy, but he disrespected the whole team, by saying that they're number 11. So I have a hard time believing it. And, Clemson's a talented team, and they may be more talented than Ohio State. I don't know. But I can tell you what, I got to believe Ohio State's going to come after them.
Yeah. Well, what you saw last year, same thing I saw. Ohio State off and on shoved them all over the field, but settled for a couple, 3 field goals, which really hurt Ohio State in the end because a couple of plays just didn't click. But that offensive line had a nice night against them. This is a really good Ohio State offensive line. I expect them to go at them in the same way, kind of a mixed bag, whatever. But I expect Ohio State to move the ball on these guys. I think it could be a similar game to last year, maybe even more high scoring, which just kind of what's your take on that?
Yeah. I think Ohio State's running game is, come on the last couple of games. So that's been good. And I expect it to be a high scoring game. They've got to contain, the QB, Lawrence. And and I think the defense just got to put pressure on him and contain him. And I don't think we're going to have a problem scoring. I really don't.
Yeah. Hey, Doug, how much would you have liked to have played in the – I'm not knocking the era you played in, but the Urban Meyer, but especially the Ryan Day era, usually 25 to 30 passes minimum, et cetera. Spread the ball around for the most part, although he definitely missed Chris Olave in that last game. You could tell that Justin Fields did. But, man, do you ever go – because, when you left Ohio State, you were the career-leading receiver, if I remember correctly, with 102 catches, in your career, which was phenomenal. When you think about Woody Hayes' teams, of course, your last two were played under Earl Bruce, but and he did open it up quite a bit. You got to admit that. But what would it have been like to play in this offense, from a receiver standpoint?
I only think about that daily, 3 and 4 wide, and we had some receivers, with Rod, myself, and Gary Williams, and, spreading the field out like that. It would have been, and the way Art could throw the ball, it would have been a dream. And we just could have been moving the ball, up and down the field. But, that mentality, I remember when we played Penn State, even under Earl, I caught 2 touchdown passes the first half, and we were moving the ball, and Earl comes in at halftime and says, we got to get back to the running attack, and so it's something that's in the air there, and so now you see where that's kind of gone, and they're, they've got a great passing attack, great receivers and quarterbacks. And so, it would have been a joy because we had the personnel, we had good tight ends and good receivers, and we could have been crazy moving the ball up and down the field, but that just, it just wasn't going to happen. It wasn't, Woody fought it, and even Earl fought it, so it was tough.
Well, that is funny you brought that up because Ryan Day was the exact opposite. You watched that game last week, I'm sure, like like everybody did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was obvious that they were shoving Northwestern around up front, but he was bound and determined that Justin have a game, but the passing game click, eventually thought it would click. And then finally, even my wife is screaming, hey, run the ball, run the ball. And finally, second half they did. And but you know what? I'd rather have a coach who thinks like that. I don't know if you agree, but modern day, you've got to be able to throw the ball. You've got to have a over the top, big time passing attack. And if you look at actually all 4 of these teams are in the Final Four, I would put Notre Dame in this regard of how they attack, et cetera, on offense. They all can throw the ball. And, Alabama, I grew up in Alabama before we moved to Texas. That was my team when I was a little bitty kid, and Bear Bryant, et cetera. But this is the best Alabama offense I've ever seen, and I've been studying it forever. And I thought this was going to be right up there Ohio State-wise with that, but they haven't had enough games. Like I had Eddie George on last week on my podcast, and they haven't really had enough games to really kind of get their feet under them. Trey Sermon finally came out of the shell, last week and stuff. But, what do you think? They've played 6 games to now. How tough is that on this team to really know what it's all about headed into a game like this?
6 games is hard. That's just, you really start getting, after that 7, 8, 9, that's when you're kind of getting into your groove and so it's just not a real good, not a lot of reps and so it's tough. I think it's a disadvantage to Ohio State, quite honestly. And, you can look at it that it's a positive maybe because they're not as beat up or whatever, but I'd rather have those games under my belt and, the familiarity with the game reps, because that's what's so critical, the game reps.
Hey, your kids put his fortunes in the hands of Luke Fickell, et cetera, at Cincinnati. How good do you feel about that?
Good. We, got a great staff down there. They got a great culture. They're building that program, and they're going to continue to build it with good players. And, Coach Fickell is just great, and he's got a great staff around him. And again, the culture they've built in that locker room is unique, and it's not easy to build a good culture like that. And so I'm excited for Drew to go there and be a part of that.
Heck yeah. Well, his video, man, his video jumps out at you. That's all I got to say. Kind of like White Lightning 2. White Lightning 2. Did you like that nickname?
Yeah, I did. That was fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that was
enjoyed
back in
it.
the good old days, man. I swear to
Yeah.
goodness. I mean, Thanksgiving,
They just,
y'all even had theme songs. Okay, people were writing songs about you on the radio. I mean,
yeah.
that was back,
Yeah.
name, image, and likeness, man. You could have made a fortune back then, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. They just call me White now. So,
Yeah, yeah. Hey, last couple things. Advantage Ohio. What's that all about? That's your company and stuff. And what are you involved in there?
sure. So Advantage, when people see that email, they think I left off the O for Ohio, but the HIO stands for hole in one. So we're a hole in one company, uh, sports indemnity. So we insure hole in one contests, NBA half court basketball shots, field goal kicks, things like that people do. And so we work with dealerships and companies that are putting on big promotions or just having a golf tournament where someone have a chance to win a brand new car by hitting a hole in one. So we
Yeah,
insure those. Yeah,
like y'all are like the Lloyds of London of sporting events.
exactly,
Hey,
exactly,
the
exactly.
Titanic is never gonna sink, man.
Right, right,
You know what I mean?
right.
No,
Yep.
hey, it's funny because I've taken part in a bunch of those. I knew what this was about, but I've taken part in a bunch of those kind of promotions and stuff. And believe me, you have nothing to fear when I'm on the tee. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey, Doug, last thing. I mean, I this is my own opinion. I've been covering Ohio State since 1984, been around it since 76 when I moved to Ohio. And I even wrote a story about you one time, a long time ago, when you were in school. I'd help out a little bit, in the coverage before I became the beat writer. But uh, I'm contending that this is the real golden era of Ohio State football. It's just people are living in it right now. But when you look at what they've done to as they call them, the team up north, 17-2 the last 19 years. As I've said, they're going to play Clemson more times in these two seasons than they played Michigan, which
right.
shows you how weird it is. But I mean, Jim Tressel and then Urban Meyer and now Ryan Day and then Luke, that one year. I mean, he had a tough road to hoe there. Uh, but this, as you look at it from afar, this is pretty damn good. What's going on here, right?
Oh yeah, I mean they're the elite of the elite. They're above them and Alabama, and I don't know that Clemson's done it as long as we have, but yeah, it's definitely the golden era, and that's evident by look at the recruiting classes, and who they're bringing in, and
Yeah.
you look at Quinn Ewers coming in. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks that ever played there. I know Quinn and how good he is, and they're just attracting talent because they've got a great staff. They got an exciting offense. They get after it defensively. They put out, pro players, and that's what people are attracted to. And so Ohio State's not one dimensional anymore. And, it's an attractive place to come because they know they're going to be playing, good chance for that national championship. And that's what people want.
Yeah. Quinn Ewers, as you're talking about, was committed to Texas. He's from South Lake Carroll High School. I think he got hurt middle of this season, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yeah,
tell
he's
people
back.
about what he's all about. And number two, like you just point out, he's the best quarterback maybe in the country coming out next year. But on top of that, definitely maybe the best player in Texas. And Ohio State, keeps going to Texas and getting these guys. That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a funny story, when we came up to a camp, I came up with Drew sophomore year, and Quinn came up with us. He was a freshman. And, we were in the indoor facility where they were, looking at guys that they were looking at. And
Yeah,
Quinn was
exactly.
out there. Quinn was out there with the masses, right? With the
Yeah.
football camp. And I told the OC, I said, you need to go get this kid out here and get him in here. And they got him in and watched him throw, and he was a freshman. And you really can't believe how good he is.
Yeah.
He throws a 50-yard ball like Tiger Woods is hitting a pitching wedge, man. He's just,
Yeah.
it's a thing of beauty. Yeah. He's good. He's
Yeah.
good.
Well,
So
you know
yeah,
what?
so yeah,
Yeah.
you get him from Texas, right? But
Yeah.
again, look at Texas and what they've done or haven't done in the last 10 or so years, 15 years. So
Yeah.
Ohio State's attractive.
That's good. I was going to say it's kind of the brand, like the Dallas Cowboys were, as you found out. You know what I mean?
Yep,
America's
yep,
team. I mean, it
exactly.
really is. It's more universal than any of these. I think it's right up there, if not surpassed Notre Dame in terms of like I'm talking about universal appeal and recognition. I mean, it's, in Alabama, obviously Alabama is Alabama, but, Ohio State has this international appeal. I mean, people
Without
watch
a
my
doubt.
podcast from all over the world, and, they tune into games, et cetera. And it is interesting and to be a part of that, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And like you say, the brand, and you compared it to the Dallas Cowboys. And I mean, it is. I mean, I'm down here in Texas, and if I go somewhere and travel and I got a Ohio State jersey or hat on, people are, always saying something about it. Right. So
Yeah.
they're, and, they're getting to that point where some people love to hate them because they're so popular and so good, so when you get there, you've made it when you got, people hating you.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Hey, real quick, I can't let you go without asking. You and passing attack, and we all know. I mean, he had a hell of a career at Ohio State. Let's put it that way. Or have you been in touch? I mean, do you keep up with him at all? Have you been in touch with him at all? I mean, I know you understand his plight, et cetera, but just what's your take on what's going on with him?
Yeah.
In his life.
Art and I, we were connected at the hip. We spent a lot of time together, working out together and in the off season. And, my parents went to away games with their parents. And so,
Yeah.
And so to, obviously to watch, what happened to Art and what unfolded in his career and his life, is very disappointing. And I've tried to stay in touch with, him through other avenues. Jeff Schnook has stayed in touch with him a lot. And so I talk with Jeff a lot to find out how Art's doing and when he's getting out and those type of things. And, it's hard to be able to, communicate with him, in his current situation. But and I talk about him to, some other teammates, still close with a lot of guys and talk on a regular basis. So it's a sad situation. But I'm hoping he gets out, and I hope he's healthy enough where he can, spend the last part of his life, doing something productive.
Yeah, no kidding, man. I mean, I know him extremely well for a lot of reasons, but Jeff Snook's one of my best friends. And matter of fact, I was just up at his cabin a couple of weeks ago up at Charles Mill Lake. But he's got he calls it his summer home. He's got the place in West Palm or Atlantis down there in Florida. He's a great
Nice
guy, as you well know. Hey, last thing, what do you think about this group of receivers? Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, another kid from Texas. Back from about 8 miles or 10 miles from the University of Texas. Garrett Wilson from Lake Travis there. But just what do you think about this group that you've been able to watch from afar?
Well, they're just so talented, and they come in and they're just ready to play. Ready to play early. And the only negative is there's just not enough balls to go around. I mean, look what the McLaren did at Washington. And see how he had a good career at Ohio State, but he's one of the best, rookies in the NFL. And so, they're just attracting the top receivers, and they got a great coach at Hartline, and, throwing the ball. I almost wish they would, of course I'm a receiver. I wish they'd throw it more because, you can't cover those guys. There's so many of them, and they got, guys sitting on the bench waiting to play. It's exciting. They're talented.
Yeah, that's what Urban Meyer calls it, feeding the hands. I mean, you've got so many talented guys there. You don't want people to become disillusioned. You want them to feel like they're part of the, whatever the attack, the plan or whatever. And it's tough to spread the ball around like that. I mean, but they do try. They didn't try that hard when you were there, I don't think.
No, I wish they would have tried a little harder. But when I talk to guys like Jimmy Moore and Jimmy Harrell, and they talk about, their career receptions, I guess I feel pretty fortunate that I got, 106 receptions that I got, I think. So
yeah, 106 instead of 6 is always a hell of a lot better, right? Hey, Doug, last thing, I'll let you go. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. No, I said, and so I look at the guys now, and they're catching that in a season, so it's just nuts.
Yeah, Paris Campbell, I mean, had a hell of a year a couple of years ago. I mean, it's just, and what do you think about Brian Hartline and the way he's bringing them along? Is that? Do you think that was a great hire by Ohio State? What's your take on that?
Yeah, Brian, he's intense. He obviously knows the position. He played it. Um, and he look, people are coming there that, you hate to say that guys are coming to play college football as a stepping stone, to the next level, because, just not many of them do that. It's a small percentage, but
Yeah.
they all have that goal. And so I think they feel like Ohio State is, as a receiver, is one of the best opportunities to do that. And a big part of that is, is someone there that can develop you and take you to the next step. And I think they feel that Hartline can do that. And I'm sure that he can. I've spent some time with him, and obviously he knows what he's doing. And the guys feel like they can learn something from him. So that's why he's recruiting so well.
Yeah. Hey, one quick Sugar Bowl story from me again. That game you guys were down there. Billy Hill told me this story. He said y'all went out to eat one night somewhere, and there were ribs or something on the menu, and Woody couldn't eat them. I mean, he couldn't handle whatever it was, and it was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess, that week for him. About what was going on and et cetera. And said he called Billy up to the table where he was eating. He goes, Billy Hill. He goes, I've just about had enough of this. He goes, you're fired, man, because I guess Billy was in charge of setting up the meals or whatever. You remember Billy Hill, right?
Oh yeah, I remember Billy.
Yeah. Anyway, so Billy says, so he goes, well, he says, I got fired again, and so he said he's sitting there in his room sleeping at about 2:00 in the morning, and his phone rings. Y'all were staying in that, what was the name of that hotel? Right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll think of it in a minute. It's the Monteleone. No, it's something like that. But anyway, and he says his phone rings, and it's Woody, and he goes, Billy Hill, get up to my room right now. He goes, I can't sleep. And so Billy goes, well, Coach, you fired me. He goes, get up here anyway. So he goes up to his room, he says, knocks on the door, and I think it was Woody's sister. That he had a suite, and Woody's sister answered the door, and Billy goes in, he says, and Woody is sitting there, and he's in a bathrobe, and he's got a pitcher and a cup of coffee sitting on the table. He goes, Billy, I am so upset with that dinner tonight and the way things are going. He goes, I had to fire you, man. I had to fire you, but I'm just so upset now. I can't sleep. And Billy says, well, Coach, probably the reason you can't sleep is because you're drinking coffee at 2:00 in the morning. And he goes, Billy Hill, you're fired again. Get out of my room. And Billy left. He was laughing. Now, that's like that Lou Holtz story, about the O.J. Simpson. Why'd he go 68 yards, 72 yards? That's all he had to go, Coach. I don't believe that actually happened, but it's still funny, right?
Yeah.
Billy
Woody
was one of a kind, though. You got to admit that.
Oh, Billy, not much. I don't think too many things shook Billy. He'd seen it all, and so he couldn't get shook up about anything.
Yeah, he was a corpsman. He was a corpsman in Vietnam, man. He pulled guys out of the bush who were wounded. I mean, boy, you and I could do a whole nother podcast just on Billy Hill. I mean, he's one of my favorite people I've ever met. Hey, well, Doug, last thing. Let's get out of here. But on this last thing, so how do you think this game will go on? Because I know you study it a little bit, man. You keep up with it. I mean, you were interested enough to go to a bowl game last year. You know what I'm saying? How do you think this is going to play out, really?
Well, it comes down to turnovers, obviously, and not making mistakes. But when they get down to the red zone, they can't get field goals. They've got to kick. They've got to get in the end zone, and that's what happened to them last year. They got down there a couple times and they kick field goals, and so and that's probably the one stat I'm not sure how Ohio State fares in the red zone, but they've got to figure out a way when they get down there, in the 10-yard line and in, they've got to get in the end zone, because I can assure you Clemson's going to, score when they get down there. So, and again, I think the X factor is going to be, I think Ohio State's got a little chip on their shoulder, not only from last year, but, the 11th ranking deal, so, I know Clemson's favored, but I think Ohio State's going to win.
Ladies and gentlemen, Doug Donley, one of my favorite players. When he was playing, he didn't know that, but it was always great to watch him run, catch the ball, et cetera. And Doug, thanks for joining the Tim May podcast, man.
You bet, Tim. Thank you. I wish you the best on the new year.
Thank you. Same to you, man. And ladies and gentlemen, get ready. The The Sugar Bowl, Ohio State versus Clemson, Act 5 is right around the corner. We'll talk about it next week. See you then.